QR code or visit eof-rav.com to support media that fights for America.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate.
Greatest superpowers on earth meeting face to face. President Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, two leaders whose decisions could reshape the future of the planet.
He's for China and I'm for the USA, and it's very simple.
What will be decided about Iran? What will be said about Taiwan? And who will emerge as the economic superpower of the future? Behind closed doors, the stakes could not be higher. Markets, militaries, allies, enemies, the whole world watching every move. Together, Real America's Voice and the War Room are taking you inside the story.
We're at war with China.
My recommendation is throw down hard.
Join Steve Bannon alongside special guest Jack Posobiec and more. Trump in China. Special coverage starts right now.
That's the way it is. That's the way it stands. We're going to do very well.
Wednesday, 13 May, Year of our Lord 2026 is 14 May, obviously, in Beijing at Tiananmen Square in the Great Hall where they are now in the meeting. Have two co-founders with me of the Committee on the Present Danger China. Make sure we woke up people in this country for what the threat was. And of course, it paid off big time in 2016. President Trump's come from behind victory was predicated a lot, not just on build a wall, but a lot of it was on confronting the Chinese Communist Party, as President Trump did consistently in his first term. In fact, after 2 years of negotiation in May of 2019, and I say this, May of 2019, the most important geopolitical month in the 21st century, at least to date, my belief is. And that's when Lighthizer and Navarro, after 2 years of negotiation of a deal that would integrate China into the world economy, really predicated upon the model of post-World War II in the West, tore it up in our face, spit in our face, said we're not going to do it, declared a people's war. Next thing you know, you got a bioweapon from Wuhan lab. You've got now the Chinese Communist Party caught intruding into, 20 data sets, databases, voter information to steal the 2020 election, on and on and on and on. That being said, Brian Kennedy, Frank Gaffey, Brian, I'll start with you. Pretty impressive, succinct, to the point, pretty impressive arrival for our commander-in-chief by Chairman Xi.
Yeah, no, I thought it was. Thank you, Steve. Thanks. Great to be with you. I thought it was very impressive. The President Xi was trying to, or Secretary Xi, better, was trying to kill President Trump with kindness, knowing that President Trump would try to kill him with kindness. This is all the opening ceremonies, as it were, of all this. I couldn't help but think, though, as President Trump was going by all those fine military members that Secretary Xi had assembled there, all I could think about was the 200,000 Chinese men of military age who look like special forces, who came during the Biden administration to the United States, who are still in the United States, and pose a very unique threat to this country. And I certainly hope one thing.
Okay, but hang on. This is the point. If we have that, we know, there's 200,000 men. I know there's 200,000 men. The War Room Posse knows there's 200,000 men, because we've talked about this now since the beginning days of the Biden allowing the 20 or 25 million invasion of our country. Couple that with the Wuhan lab, what today the CIA employee, CIA agent or operative said in Congress that the CIA went in and tried to suppress In fact, they actually had the reality of the Wuhan lab. Fauci changed it, got the CIA to change it. Then they went about suppressing that. I could go on and on. The mayor of Acadia, which is just the first of thousands. The bioweapons lab, the little one we found in Vegas, which is one of hundreds. We could go on and on with today. Somebody convicted in a Manhattan court. I could go on and on. You got 200,000 special forces operative here. Then why are we in Beijing, and why do we bring 35 business guys who all have sold out the middle class in this country, and all they want is access to the Chinese market? Sir.
Sorry, we shouldn't be. In my humble opinion, we shouldn't be there. The predicate of returning those 200,000 would be a start. They should be paying reparations for what they did to the U.S. economy. President Trump said that it was a $20 trillion hit to the U.S. economy that COVID created. President Trump is trying to keep the world economy together. That much is clear, and he wants to do good for the U.S. economy. But I fear that the Chinese are not going to take him seriously until he starts building an administration here in this country that is going to root out those 200,000 men who are going to hold China accountable for COVID. And look, Steve, at the end of the day, we wouldn't be there talking unless there was a problem. Right now, China, the differences between China and the United States are irreconcilable in so many ways. China wants to be the manufacturing platform of the world. President Trump, on the other hand, wants to bring manufacturing back to the United States. That is fundamentally unacceptable to communist China. So long as that's the case, we're going to be at war with them. They declared the People's War, as you said. They've never repealed that. We are still at war with them today. We shouldn't be over there. Those tech overlords of ours who are there, no good can come of that. Now, the only thing we have going for us is that President Trump does understand the threat from communist China to the United States. He's trying to build a national missile defense. He's trying to rebuild the U.S. military, and he's trying to get a lot of these things going in the right direction. But he's yet to have enough people in the administration to help him do that, and that's the unfortunate part here.
There was a leak. I think, in the Wall Street Journal about potentially people in the administration working on and they were using the Wall Street Journal to kind of run it up the flagpole and see who saluted, of which War Room did not, about the possibility of allowing the Chinese Communist Party to actually invest in the United States, in data centers, to invest in the United States in manufacturing, up to $1 trillion. Your thoughts on that topic, sir? Well, look, I love President Trump, and there's no bigger supporter of President Trump than me. If they invest $1 trillion in the U.S. economy, that means they have equity in the U.S. economy of $1 trillion. I think it would spell the end of his presidency, I fear, because everything he has ambitions for, to bring back jobs for the American middle class, that would be placed on hold while those investments took place. And communist China would exact a great toll with those kind of investments. It's not fundamentally a starter, in my opinion, for this trip or for the long-term health of the U.S. economy. Having communist China, they already spend $20 billion a year in intelligence and influence operations. What would it mean if they invested $1 trillion? They would own the United States corporate and business community more than they already do. And I think the president, I think that may have been floated, but I don't think the president is going to go there with this. Frank Gaffney, your thoughts about all this, sir? You're the one that keeps reminding us every time I tell about May of 2019 being the most important month geopolitically in the 21st century. That includes 9/11, that includes bombing of Iran, because a deal that President Trump worked on for 2 years that would actually allow the Chinese Communist Party and take away, as Navarro says, the 7 deadly sins of their economic structure. They tore it up and spit in our face. After that, you had COVID, you had their involvement in the 2020 election, trying to steal it for Joe Biden. You keep reminding me, Steve, don't forget that the gentleman you saw right there, declared a people's war on the United States of America, Frank Gaffney.
In that very month. You know, Steve, as we're delving into ancient history, let me take you back a little bit further. I was on the ground in Reykjavik when the President of the United States met with the then leader of the totalitarian communist enterprise that sought our destruction, namely the Soviet Union. That would have been Mikhail Gorbachev. The president was Ronald Reagan. And there was not so much of this pomp and circumstance. It was a kind of thrown together meeting in Iceland, of all places. But there was an awful lot of hopefulness at the moment that they were going to come together and they were going to find a way to make deals that would really end the Cold War. And specifically, Mikhail Gorbachev had a scheme. He wanted the President of the United States to agree to eliminate nuclear weapons from the face of the earth, something that Ronald Reagan, as you know, Steve, desperately wanted to do. The only catch was that Ronald Reagan would have to give up the commitment that he had made to defend the American people against missile attack. Why do I bring all this up? Because in the end, Reagan didn't go for the bad deal, a deal that would have ensured that we perpetuated the Soviet threat. We didn't put it on the ash heap of history, which was his stated purpose, which he got a mandate to do. And I am prayerful that the President of the United States, as we speak, Donald J. Trump, in Beijing, surely to be tempted, again, in much the same way, by today's Chinese communist threat, will resist it, will not give up any of a number of things. You and Brian were just talking about $1 trillion investment. That makes even the Qatari efforts to bribe us pale by comparison, doesn't it? But it sort of beckons with the hope that maybe we can finesse the problem with Taiwan somehow by, relinquishing to the Chinese control over it, or that we can put the Chinese in the middle of the Iran deal and thereby somehow get us out of there and the Strait of Hormuz will be open. I mean, these are all very seductive temptations. But I believe, and our Committee on the Present Danger China has with your leadership and Brian's, from its inception believes, the problem with the Chinese Communist Party will not end until we have the end of the Chinese Communist Party. And I pray that as Reagan walked away from Reykjavik without that deal and set in train the end of Soviet communism, at least, in the previous form, that this time around, this president in this moment will similarly say, I'm not going to fall for these kinds of seductive deals. All those old friends of China who are there urging him to just get a little further in bed with China, give him more deals, give him more access to our technology, give him more access, as Brian says, to our country. That all of that will fall by the wayside in favor of what I think the president has been doing, to his great credit, notably with Maduro's takedown and notably with the Iranian, effort to free the people of that country, is to bring about the end, in turn, of the people who are really the masterminds of evil in our time. And that would be the Chinese communists under Xi Jinping.
Dr. Thayer, when Frank talked about Reagan and the Russians, the business community, and it's always been strong, always had a voice, the arms industry, the military industrial complex that General Eisenhower warned us against, but it's nothing like today. Today, you have this mass concentration on financial power in the lords of easy money. And Larry Fink's right there, Steve Schwartzman, two of the worst. You've got these technology companies that I'm not even talking about the AI, I'm talking about the Apples of the world. And if you want to throw up, read Apple in China. That book is absolutely eviscerates Apple and the Apple management, all of them. And you got Elon Musk and Jensen Huang, who I believe are just agents of influence for the Chinese Communist Party, full stop, right? They're economically involved. On the 100th anniversary of the CCP, it was Elon Musk had the pom-poms out, sending out tweets over and over again and promoting their tweets about how great they were and how wonderful they are. One thing I noticed when I talk to business people or financiers that come on, we send them clips on the Committee on Present Danger, the War Room, they're kind of aghast that, wow, you guys really think these people are enemies. They're just competitors, or maybe we can make them strategic partners. You've spent a good part of your professional career of really analyzing the way they look at the world, right? Explain to this audience tonight what this huge gap is. They're not like us. They don't think like us. She and President Trump does have a very strong relationship, but it's also a system that doesn't reward relationships, because you could be at the top one day and you could be in, as people in the PLA's military finding out now, you could be in a dungeon because you didn't follow the party line, or they found you for quote unquote corruption. How does this apparatus look at the world, and why is it so different than what Western businessmen look at the world, sir?
Well, it's hugely different, Stephen. It's great to join you tonight to consider and to really evaluate what's happening, what President Trump and General Secretary Xi Jinping are doing. The differences are profound. So Communist China is a Leninist regime. You have Xi Jinping, who's creating really a neo-Stalinist government in Communist China today. And so the object of that neo-Stalinist government is to destroy the United States and to have Communist China dominate the world. And that's very important to recognize. Brian mentioned the People's War that they declared in 2019. Of course, that was really a restatement, recognizing that they've been at war at us since they came to power in 1949. Frank's example is very helpful as well to remind us at Reykjavik, when Reagan did back away from a very bad deal, that we were confronting another Leninist regime led by the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. So we have with the Soviets and we have with the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, birds of a feather. They have the same ideology at root. They practiced it in very different ways. The CCP is far better at political warfare than the Soviets were. The Soviets sought to stay out of our economic ecosystem, and largely they did. There were, of course, some folks, Arm & Hammer, Occidental Petroleum, of course, who maintained business ties with the Soviets, but they were isolated. They were outcasts because they were recognized to be trading with the enemy. The CCP did something that was brilliant in contrast to the Soviets. They made the American business community their partners. They shared the wealth and allowed American businesses, as well as South Korean, Japanese, and European, to enter communist China to get rich and to use that wealth to reward not only the businessmen who are investing, but also to get influence, right? Using United Front tactics to penetrate our media, our universities, our political system, really the American elite, so that they became partners of this odious regime, of the Chinese Communist Party. That was a brilliant move, and it was expertly done. So that's why you have such a profound disconnect. Frank's example from 1986, America was really ruled by strategists, not by financiers, not by businessmen. Strategists knew how to look at the world. They understood Leninism, and they understood the threat of the Soviet Union. It's a very different situation today. Our strategists have been in hibernation, it seems, for a very long time, and the financiers, Wall Street, have been obviously dominating, which is why you have this coterie of individuals going with President Trump and folks talking about a board of trade and a board of investment in or with communist China, which is absolutely the wrong way to go. That's sustaining a failed engagement policy. And we need to move in the opposite direction to recognize the nature of the threat. Again, a Leninist government. This is not a Chinese government. This is a Leninist government. It's a colonial, it's a product of Soviet imperialism. The Soviets put the CCP in charge. The Comintern, the Communist International, which is what the Bolsheviks created to spread the revolution, created the Chinese Communist Party. The Comintern selected Mao in September of 1938 over one of his rivals, Wang Ming, to lead the Chinese Communist Party, and they backed him to the hilt. So this is a product of Soviet imperialism. It's a colonial government really occupying China. We need to see it as such, and recognizing that, again, it's vicious. It interfered. It tried to steal the 2020 election. It will do again, right? Unless there's punishment.
It dropped a bioweapon on us when President Trump's economy was on a roll. Hang on for a second.
And
what we're going to do at the bottom of the hour, we're going to replay the first 30 minutes, the arrival, because it was pretty impressive. And you'll see the school children out there, et cetera. So they had a passing review, a review of the troops by the president, by the chairman Xi. Then they had a passing review, and President Trump got to see the school children welcoming him. They had his staff, the cabinet members and senior members of the Politburo and the Central Committee. President Trump met them. Xi met his cabinet members, and we're going to play it in its entirety, starting at the bottom of the hour. Guys, we're going to bounce. I want everybody, if you've got 2 minutes, Brian Kennedy, to give me your advice to President Trump throughout the day today as they go in and out of all these meetings on Taiwan, meetings on artificial intelligence, all of it. What would you tell the president?
Well, hold firm to your understanding that communist China is a threat to this country, both economically and militarily. He has witnessed it firsthand, Steve, this idea that communist China is an enemy of this country. They tried to take him out in 2019. They've been, with COVID-19, they saw how powerful the United States was becoming, and now they are doing still everything in their power to bring down this country. Stick to your guns, Mr. President. The president does understand clearly that he runs a commercial republic. He does want to make good economic deals for the country, and I have every confidence he's going to do that. That earlier idea of $1 trillion investment, I don't think the president takes that seriously. He does want to sell U.S. goods to the Chinese. That's perfectly understandable. But there's much bigger things here, namely the political warfare that they're waging against the United States and the rest of the world, and their sponsorship of every bad actor in the country. And our prayers are with President Trump over there tonight.
Brian, where do people get you? Where do people get you on social media?
Brian T. Kennedy 1 on X, Brian T. Kennedy on Getter, and PresentDangerChina.org for all the work of the Committee on Present Danger.
We may do this again tomorrow night to see President Trump at the morning tea and then the lunch, and I'll reach out to you, sir. Thank you. Chris Fenton, by the way, the movie producer Chris Fenton knows all about this. Wrote a book about China and content and the pleasure of making movies under the watchful eye of the Chinese Communist Party. Chris Fenton, can the President of the United States trust the Chinese Communist Party to live up to any of the agreements that they would agree to, or would they just say, hey, circumstances changed, sir?
Well, I would say thanks for having me on a very important night. It's quite spectacular that it's happening only a few weeks before June 4th, which is a major anniversary, as we all know. I would say that it is 100% certain that China is not changing their ways. They play the long game. we've seen a rinse and repeat over and over in terms of how they look at deals, whether they're geopolitical deals or business deals, quite frankly. We have to remember that they are one of our 4 foreign adversaries as defined by the U.S. government. Would we be behaving or putting on this type of a show with, say, North Korea, Russia, or Iran right now? I doubt it. I'm hoping there's a great game of 4D chess going on. There's something that's going on behind the scenes that's really strategic. In fact, I loved how one of your guests talked about the disappearance of strategists versus financialists or capitalists. We really do have to put patriotism before capitalism. And if you think about where we have come in the last 8 years, I would say since Trump won, we really started to define the way we saw the nefarious behavior of China, and we started to implement policy and started to have the whole U.S. populace behind it. If you remember, I'm an informal advisor for the Select Committee on China for Congress, and we passed almost unanimously a TikTok banning bill, which would have further bifurcated the app from what it is right now. We haven't diligenced where that is right now. It's still obviously here and usable for Americans without any sort of diligencing of not understanding exactly how it's been bifurcated from Beijing's control. So we're seeing over and over again this rinse and repeat of not being able to trust Beijing. We have to keep in mind that they are a competitor of ours. Yes, maybe we want to avoid a kinetic conflict. I have kids, people have grandkids. We want to have a strong future for all of us. But we have to see them as wearing another jersey, and we do not want to give them our playbook. We want to play against them with the strongest team and the strongest strategy possible so that we can win this game in the long term.
Chris, where do people go to get your book? Where do they go to get all your writings? You're a special advisor to the committee. You got a new film coming out. Where do they go to get all your content, sir?
At the Dragon Feeder on Twitter, or you can find me at feeding.thedragon on Instagram. And I look forward to coming back and talking more about that movie that's 100% American made with no China influence.
We're going to come back and have you on there. People got to go see it. Chris Fenton, you know the Chinese, you know how they act. Circumstances change. Frank Gaffney, you've got about 90 seconds, sir. Your closing thoughts for tonight. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.
Steve, thanks. And this is such an important time. You have often pointed out the historical moment in which George Herbert Walker Bush, in the aftermath of what went on in that same square that we just saw so spectacularly reconfigured for this purpose, sent Brent Scowcroft over to assure the Chinese Communist Party that we wanted to do business with them. We wanted to prop them up. We wanted to legitimate them. We wanted to enable them to prosper with our help. And that put in significant motion all of the things we've just been talking about, that Brian's been warning about, well, I've been warning about, the committee's been warning about, you've been warning about. That mustn't happen this time. I entreat President Trump to realize that this is a moment when the Chinese Communist Party, I think, can be taken down. Maybe not instantly, but put that in motion instead of propping them up. And it's as important as anything that we not confuse the American people about the fact that they are our mortal enemy, not because we want them to be, but because that's what they are. And they are set on our destruction. We must resist that, not further enable it.
Frank, where do people go to get your content, sir? You're working on so many different things. Where do they go?
Our show's Substack is securingamerica.substack.com. That's sort of one-stop shopping. At Frank Gaffney on X. And bansharia.com, the other big problem we got to confront. Please check them all out.
Oh, man. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for staying up tonight. Dr. Thayer, we've got to go. We're going to get to you tomorrow night. But where do people go? You got a book coming out. I don't know, maybe in August, maybe under War Room Press. A big announcement coming on that. Where do people go to get your content, Dr. Thayer?
And Steve, thanks for writing the foreword to that book. Brad Thayer at X and Bradley Thayer at Truth and on Getter Steve, recognize President Trump's got a royal flush. If it's a poker hand, he's got a royal flush. He's got to deny this odious regime the oxygen they need to survive.
Amen. Dr. Thayer, you're a patriot, a hero and a patriot, sir. Thank you. Look forward to the book coming out. We're going to play the entire first half hour. You got to watch this. President Trump arriving. Pretty impressive, particularly when you think, as Frank Gaffney just said, and Jack Posobiec, the historical nature of Tiananmen Square, what it has meant in Chinese history and in world history. We're going to go to that in a moment. I want to thank birchgold.com for being our sponsor. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon, end of the dollar empire, get you all up to speed about one of the big fights here, and that's over currency. Is the United States going to stay supreme? Is the dollar going to stay as king dollar? Find it all out. Talk to Philip Patriot team. Also, 972 Patriot Mobile. Glenn Story, Jenny Story, amazing people. Always a sponsor here at Real America's Voice and with the War Room. And we're going to talk all about the Texas race, even starting tomorrow. See us back here at 10 a.m. in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time. We're going to have a whole new War Room with you. On fire. Right now, we're going to go back to the beginning of the historic summit as President Trump, the commander-in-chief of the American Armed Forces, has met in Tiananmen Square. See you.
We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
Tonight, the eyes of the world are locked on Beijing. The two greatest superpowers on Earth meeting face to face. President Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. Two leaders whose decisions could reshape the future of the planet.
He's for China and I'm for the USA, and it's very simple.
What will be decided about Iran? What will be said about Taiwan? And who will emerge as the economic superpower of the future? Behind closed doors, the stakes could not be higher. Markets, militaries, allies, enemies, the whole world watching every move. Together, Real America's Voice and the War Room are taking you inside the story.
We're at war with China. My recommendation is throw down hard.
Join Steve Bannon alongside special guest Jack Posobiec and more. Trump in China. Special coverage starts right now.
That's the way it is. That's the way it stands. We're going to do very well.
Welcome, Wednesday, 13 May in the year of our Lord 2026. It's already Thursday in Beijing. There's the photos right there. We're getting from the pool. Live coverage on Real America's Voice in the War Room. We have Neil McCabe is at the White House. John Solomon and Jack Posobiec also join us tonight. McCabe, set the plate here. Set the table. We're going to the president's going to arrive here momentarily. There'll be a meeting or a greeting by Xi, and then they're going to go off and start the meeting. The American delegation's already out there waiting for the president. Neil McCabe.
Yeah, hey, Steve, there's going to be a number of agreements that have basically already been sort of gone smooth before this. Probably the biggest one is going to be the aerospace agreement, where the centerpiece of that is the Chinese are agreeing to buy 500 Boeing 737 Maxes, which will be bought in the United States, they'll be built in the United States, and then the interiors will be put together in China. There's also going to be a pledge to buy agricultural goods.
Yeah, here comes the motorcade. Here comes the motorcade right now. Hang on, Jack. Put us in the. We're right there, I guess, outside the Temple of Heavenly Peace. Put us in where we are actually in Beijing. Here comes the President of the United States right there. There's the beast.
Well, Steve, this is Tiananmen Square. People need to realize this. You are looking at Tiananmen Square. All the major moments of the founding of the CCP, Chairman Mao standing atop that very gate behind where you see his image in those wide shots where the beast is driving in front of right now. And this is, of course, the same square, June 4th, 1989, the Tiananmen Square massacre. They are in that very same location. It's also the location where just down, I believe, out of the shot there is the mausoleum of Chairman Mao. And typically on a day unlike today, where I'm sure that there's a lot of security protocols in place, you would see Chinese people wrapped around the block to get an image of Chairman Mao where he lies in state, perpetual state in Tiananmen Square.
Remember on 4 June, that was a culmination and led to a slaughter. The people say up to 10,000 were killed that day. John Solomon. Very big meeting. There's the president right now arriving in the Beast. Very high security. The American delegation's right off to our left on that photo. John Solomon, your thoughts?
Listen, I think there's a lot of business to be transacted today. I don't think the big issues that dominate the Chinese-American relationship are going to be resolved. There'll be some discussion of Iran. I doubt China will bend and say, hey, we'll help you solve the problem in Iran. I think there'll be some agreement. China would like its oil out of the strait. The president may say, hey, give me the ability to clear the strait. Trust me to do this, and we'll get that done. I think there'll be, as Jack and others have said, there's going to be a significant amount of business agreements that are going to be pro-American agreements that China puts on the table. They're glad to spend money to make America happy. Yeah. Taiwan will come up, probably won't get addressed, and Jimmy Lai will come up.
Yeah, there's the official meeting right there. You got in last night, John. There's Xi has come out to meet the President of the United States. Two most powerful individuals in the world. You would agree with that, John Solomon?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. These are the number one and number two superpowers. America's still number one. China's still number two.
There's the president walking with Xi. Jack, the Chinese take this, by the way, president's there to meet some of the Chinese delegation, the senior members of the Central Committee, I take it, Jack?
That's right. He's meeting with the Politburo now. He's meeting with the state chair. He's, I believe, you see the military leaders there, the admiral. And what's interesting is that you actually don't see the president. He doesn't seem to be operating with a translator there. So, of course, he's speaking in English. The leaders of the Central Party Commission, the CPC, responding in English because many of them, including Xi Jinping, of course, studied in the United States for a period, do actually speak passing English. However, they don't do so publicly for nationalist purposes. Yet you can see Xi Jinping, the president there, and what strikes me is that you don't see them being trailed by translators. I saw the same thing when President Trump met with Putin there in Alaska, when we were up in Alaska last year.
There's Ambassador Monica Crowley with the blonde hair and the white. Right there, Scott Besson. That's the senior. Pete Hegseth, senior members. Ambassador Jameson Greer. Okay, the chairman, Xi, is Stephen Miller on this trip. Just fantastic. Pretty unusual, John Solomon, to have a meet and greet with various members of their staffs, is it not?
Yeah, I think this is done for optical reasons, both in China and the United States. China knows that the president likes fanfare, that he likes to have people greeted warmly. He likes to create a warm environment for a discussion. I think China playing into that. But this is a rare staging. I assume the United States and China worked on this together, but you're seeing a large amount of engagement between officials who probably very seldom talk to each other and certainly are almost never face to face. So very interesting optics to begin a conversation that's going to be, candid. It's going to have to be a brutally candid conversation today.
You know, Jack, I heard, and I think McCabe will back this up, this was only really announced in China a few days ago, right? They wanted to make sure that this was actually going to get pulled off. There's the president walking across Tiananmen right now. This was only announced a few days ago, I believe.
Well, Steve, something to note, I would say, is that regardless of what China's feelings are towards America, and we know what they are, but Donald Trump as an individual is extremely, extremely popular within China. And we saw images, Carly Bonet and others had them as well, of people lining the streets for the motorcade, people lining the streets outside of his hotel, just trying to catch a glimpse of him, of thousands upon thousands of Lao Beijing Chinese. So he's a very, very famous figure. They look to him as someone who's an extreme example of American success.
There, right there, is this going to be this is the honor guard from President Trump always loves this part of it right there. I think there's going to be a little passing review. Can we get any sound of the band? Any chance of doing that? Yeah, if we can just bring up the volume of the ambient sound. on a second. Neil McCabe, tell me about the, we're trying to work on the audio. Neil McCabe, tell me about the spontaneous outpouring of the Chinese people to see President Trump.
Yeah, there's tremendous. It's warm and it's curious. And it really wasn't created by the Chinese government. They're lining the streets. They're hanging out at the hotel. There are people with like big professional cameras taking pictures of him. It's really spontaneous. And it's not so much he's a political figure, but he's someone who's almost like a celebrity type figure. Not so much threatening, like the Chinese aren't trying to suppress it at all. They're just sort of letting it flow.
We're in Tiananmen Square. We're getting this official reception from President Trump. Jack Posobiec, looks like the military passing review and the passing review passed the children. Let's make sure don't lose the ambit. We're going to go back to that moment. Jack, also very, just like at the airport greeting, the children had a big role in this, correct?
Steve, that's right. You're seeing a full court press here from the Chinese Communist Party to show a warm relationship. They understand the power of optics. They understand the power of pageantry, the power of showing that story. I mean, this reminds me of Chairman Mao when he would go and review the countryside. That's exactly what they would do. He would have that one train car that they'd pull around, and they'd bring all the children would come up close, and whether they lived in that town or not, they would always bring the best looking kids, the most well-behaved kids. They'd put them up there. They'd get those photos with Chairman Mao, and then they'd bring them off. So they're putting on the best face. There's no question, and they're doing that for President Trump because this is something that the Chinese side believes at this point, that if they show this warm welcome, that will give them a more favorable outcome when it comes to President Trump for these variety of deals, for the negotiation points that they're looking for vis-a-vis not just, let's not just think about Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, the crisis there on energy right now, but also the rise of BRICS. Let's not forget, this is the country that is trying to take America's lunch and more.
Hang on, Jack, just right there, going into the Great Hall of the people, they're turning and looking back over Tiananmen Square. And I'm sure the chairman's pointing out the historic nature of many of the sites there.
Those steps that they're standing on right now, the soldiers poured out of that building and the National Museum of China, which is directly across. So the students were in the center. You had the tanks come in from Chang'an Avenue, which is where the large Tiananmen Square gate is. Soldiers came out of this building. They came out of the building right across, and the students were caught right in the middle.
The turning going to the Great Hall. John Solomon, this is quite an honor. I don't think this happened President Trump's first visit. I think this is quite an honor for President of the United States.
It is a very big gallantry, much more than any prior visit between the two. And the young children, the music, the gallantry, I think, is all designed to create an optically warm relationship. The discussions behind closed doors are going to be a little more terse, right? Think about what happened just a few hours ago in New York City. A Chinese operative was convicted of running an illegal police station on our soil with the hopes of maybe killing someone on our soil or recovering someone on our soil, Chinese dissident. So those things can't be glossed over when we get past the gallantry, but you're absolutely right. I've seen a few of these presidential visits to Beijing. This is probably among the best pageantry I've seen, but it can't mask over the difficult conversation points that are going to take place inside that Great Hall.
Jack, you noticed that the even as high as the members of the Politburo, the Central Committee, and the U.S. Cabinet, you go through a side door. The Emperor and the President go through the main door on the red carpet. Everybody else through a side door, sir.
That's very traditional. That's protocol. The emperor going through the central door. The emperor's, the emissary of the foreign power, the leader of the foreign power, then arriving with him. That is one door. That door is only for the leader of the people. And to be clear, no chairman since Mao himself has had the single most amount of control, total control over all of China than Xi Jinping. Deng Xiaoping really worked, kind of in the shadows, even though he was the paramount leader. Then, of course, you had the series of technocrats. You had Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao. But when Xi Jinping came in, he hearkened back to the days of the cult of personality, the cult of Chairman Mao, which still, and I'm telling you, if that camera panned just a little bit to the side, you would see the giant mausoleum of Chairman Mao. It's right there.
John Solomon, Jack brings a very good point. Not since Chairman Mao have you had one individual that's chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, also is the head of state, and also the head of the military. He's actually taken overall military control from the People's Liberation Army. All the senior commanders report to him, John Solomon.
Yeah, no, listen, he consolidated power after a period of a little bit of tumult in China. And I think he's consolidated it in a way that holds the Communist Chinese Party's line. There was some concern that Western influence had moved China more to a more Western-friendly position. He has cranked that back a little bit. He definitely has about as much power as Chairman Mao as anyone since Chairman Mao's reign. And, there are a lot of people that today suffer in China, whether it's people who have their organs forcibly harvested, whether there are people who aren't allowed to have the children they want, the freedoms, Jimmy Lai in prison today, the newspaper publisher. So this has been a crackdown sort of president. He not only consolidated power, he cracked down in dissent in a way that we haven't seen in some time in China.
Jack, on that point, the consolidation, this perturbations you've seen with the military, right? Senior commanders purged, people sent to prison on graft and corruption. There we go, right there. They know President Trump loves that pomp and ceremony, and today they provided took only 20 minutes. They were right on time as they always are, but very precise. Both groups now are inside. I guess we're getting an inside shot now. We're taking this all from a pool feed. Look at the meeting space. It's right there. They bring the entire starting team, don't they? Jack, the consolidation of military power and Xi not bringing any nonsense at all from his military.
Well, Steve, that's exactly right. And so we were talking about this earlier on War Room. And so Chairman Mao, of course, presided over the Chinese Communist Revolution, which also effectuated the Civil War with the nationalists. That situation led to the status quo where we are with Taiwan being in this limbo status of the Republic of China, the previous government of China, some would say the rightful government of China. We had the Taiwanese ambassador on Human Events earlier today talking about all of that. But he also led the Cultural Revolution. But what Xi Jinping has led, he calls the self-revolution. And what that is it's a purge that is continuous, that he views anyone who's a potential rival to him. Bo Xilai was the original rival that he saw as a potential coming up through the ranks early on. He had him indicted. He was the head of one of China's largest cities, Chongqing. Yep. He got rid of him. He then, along the way, even people that he appointed, even people that he's worked with on the military side, on the party side, Xi Jinping, if he views someone is disloyal or a potential rival, he gets rid of them immediately. If he sees someone going a little bit Icarus, who feels like they're getting a little bit too close to the sun, he strikes them down immediately.
You've got Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Shots right there as they get ready to take their seats. John, they're going to start off large, and I'm sure throughout the day they'll have breakout sessions with just Xi and a few advisors and the president. John, you made a point today on the morning show that you believe President Trump's holding all the cards here. Although Xi has made great strides in technology and military power, their economy is still kind of a mess, and they definitely need Western financing and access to Western markets. Walk us through why you say President Trump holds all the cards.
It's the dangle of our markets. China doesn't have a middle-class marketplace to sell its wares to. Its economy can't expand unless the Americans buy Chinese-made goods and Chinese-produced products. And so as the Chinese economy has suffered from, one, a real estate crisis, two, general malaise in its own economic middle class. It doesn't have much of a middle class, but there isn't a significant marketplace here for it to share or make its money off of wares. And so that is both the carrot and the stick here today. It can be a carrot. Donald Trump could open up opportunity, or he can say, listen, you don't help me on these things, or you don't act this way on certain ways, I tighten up the markets. And remember where we were in the spring of 2020, just before COVID really shut us down. The president was taking significant actions to restrain U.S. market capital from China and taking away some of the market trading privileges. That is still on the table for Donald Trump. And China is aware how close they came in 2020 to losing some significant capabilities on Wall Street and across the country. So that is his secret weapon here today. The Chinese economy does not thrive without a robust American partnership. And so Trump can use that to navigate a lot of things. That said, the Chinese are patient, and they sometimes are willing to outwait a President Trump, do a rope-a-dope. Hope they get a new Joe Biden in the office who rolled over and gave China everything they wanted. And so it's interesting to see. I think they'll be cordial. I think China will give some ground to this president. The real question is, can Republicans sustain a long enough tenure in Washington, 6, 8, 10 years, that they significantly change the nature of this relationship?
Right there, you see the President of the United States flanked by Secretary of State National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, also the Ambassador to China, David Perdue, I think, and Scott Bessent. So is there any ambience? I don't know if we're going to get opening statements or not. I would love to do that. Normally, that doesn't happen. Do we have any audio?
No, she started speaking, but it's not English.
Okay, fine. They don't have a translation. Okay. Jack Posobiec, these are normally the more formal parts. We're having an opening statement by Xi. And President Trump will say a few words, then they'll get into it. How do you think this is going to kick off, Jack Posobiec? You've been in many of these with your formal training in Mandarin.
Well, look, Steve, there's going to be a lot of formalities. There's going to be a lot of honorifics. This is something that the Chinese pride themselves on, especially when it comes to these state visits. And, let's remember this, of course, is a tradition that started all the way back by Richard Nixon when he made that historic first visit to China, and the secret visits by Kissinger, meeting with Zhou Enlai even prior to that. So this is in that tradition. Only Nixon could go to China, and perhaps only Trump can meet with Xi. So there's going to be a lot of that formality, and then of course it's going to be doubled. So it's going to be these meetings always require patience because you've got to wait for the translation.